We're now into the second half of the FIA European Rally Championship, an all tarmac second half to the season, starting off with our annual trip to Italy. Welcome to Rally di Roma Capitale. And I'll start off with the entry list. There are a variety of different entries across the 103 strong list for this event. Pretty much all of them fit somewhere within the Rally Pyramid, the FIA Pyramid from Rally 1 to Rally 5. There is a Rally GT or two on the entry list as well, but, well, let's talk about it in greater detail. Starting off with our Rally 2 competitors, the top seed is Rupe Korhonen, and then Efren Lorena will be the second seeded entry. Emil Lindholm will be third for the J2X Rally team, and Mika Marcek will be fourth. I believe Lindholm will be taking what was usually the seat for Nikolai Grajen, who won the first round of Rally Sierra Morena. Mads Osberg will be fifth, followed by Andrea Mabolini, John Armstrong, Milia Hansen, Simona Tempestini and Jakob Toka rounding out that top 10. After that we get through Jos Verstappen, Norbert Herzig, Simon Wagner, Roberto Blach, Max McRae, Philip Allen, Martin Vlicek, Andras Hadek, Dominik Strachewski. Then we get Jan Solons for the MRF tyres. I believe that that's a similar kind of ride, if not the same Yaris that we've seen Stefan Lefebvre running in previous rounds. Then we get into a lot of the Italian local entrants to this event. Gian Domenico Basso behind the wheel of Fabio. I believe that's another car change because he was in a Toyota GR Yaris last year. Andrea Cagnola is still with that trusty Citroen C3. Bostian Abelli, who was stage winner last year, I believe, went off the road, I think, on Friday. Fabio Andolfi, Marco Signor, Roberto Dapra, who we see in the WRC. I think, isn't he even doing the WRC this weekend? Simona Campidelli. Then we have a non-Italian breaking up this order with Benjamin Kohala. Then some more Italians for Antonio Rusk, Davide Porta, Vittorio Sasato, and another WRC2 regular, Rachele Tomaschini. The Rally 2 entry list for the championship is rounded out by Dariusz Petrinsky, Jarosław Korten, Zoltan Laszlo, Piotr Kraszynski, David Tomek, and Eamon Bolan. We have some entered for the Italian championship, such as Ivan Ferrarotti, Liberato Sulpizio, and Sara Cara. Then we have some non-championship entered drivers who entered for the event, like Marco Pollara, Fabio Angelucci, Andrea Nusita, Thomas Palisic, and Christian Milano. We have 12 Rally 3s entered, with the M Sport Fiesta Rally 3 trophy also taking part this weekend. Entered for both honours. Top seed is Timotej Shambanovsky, Tristan Charpentier, and Igor Vidwak. Then down 6th, 7th and 8th in the seeding is Adrian Zhezhnik, Casey J. Coleman and Martin Ravenchak. And then 10th and 11th are Adam Gran and the front runner in the JWRC, entered with KMS Racing XVL here, Taylor Gill. The Clio's entered for Blažej Gazda, Hubert Kowalczyk, and Sebastian Butinsky, as well as a non-championship entry in a Clio Rally 3 for Husan Lee. The Rally 4s get a little bit complicated, and remember ERC4 is Rally 4 and Rally 5, we'll get on to Rally 5 in a moment. Most of them are entered for ERC4, some of them are entered for Junior ERC as well, and there are some drivers who may also be entered for the Michelin Trofeo Italia Elite Trofeo Lancia. That is being awarded at the end of every day, those points. So, starting off, we have Kalle Karlberg, Johan Lloyd, Sergi Perez, Jasper Vaar, Aoife Raftery, Tuukka Koppanen, Keelan Grogan, Craig Rail, Levi Lassala, Luca Progloff, Tommaso Sandren, Kevin Lempu, Francesco De Cecchi, Kevin Sarava, Johan Soroka, And then we get into some of the people who are not entered for the juniors, but have the Lancia trophy as part of theirs. These are some Italian Championship regulars. So Davide Pesavento, Giandrea Pisani, Giorgio Cotni, Gabriel Di Pietro, Nicola Ardizzoni, Michael Randina, Federico Francia, and Dennis Vigliaturo. In addition to that, you have Michael Langauer, Andrea Maggiotti, Manueli Fiori, Manueli Rosso, Eduardo D'Antoni. Then you get some people who are entered for some parts of the Trofeo Lancia, but not the Trofeo Italia, like Dariusz Polonsky, Adam Soroka, Mauro Pozia, Giuseppe Piumati. And then we get some other entries that are a blend of everything. No more juniors here. But Catherine Radulescu, Simone Di Giovanni, Daniele Campanaro, Patrick Hallberg, Thomas Hendricks, who's not entered for any championship, Giovanni Cisato, Pierluigi Marino, and Azia Vidori. Then for the Rally 5s, in addition to that, we have Cyprian Lupu, and then not entered for the ERC here, we have Ludwig Zigliani and Nazan Zorlu, all behind the wheel of the Clio Rally 5. The other entrants we have on the list on EWRC results are 2 Rally GTs, both of which in different categories, interestingly enough. Gianfranco Belletti is entered as the Rally GT and will be competing for class honours but not championship honours. Whereas Roberto Gobbin will be in an Arbath Rally GT as well, but instead is entered for the Italian Championship, the Italian Two-Wheel Drive Championship, and Michelin Trofeo Italia Elite. Now, in terms of the action, Shakedown starts at 8 o'clock on Friday, the 4th of July, and the stages run all the way through until about 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 6th. So, there will be 3 full days of action, 2 full days of stages, 13 tests all in all that add up to make the results, which is 207.82 competitive kilometres. But starting off, we will have the shakedown and qualifying stage, the Fimoni test, 6.45 kilometres. It has served as the shakedown since, I believe, 2018. And in 2023 and 2024, it also made up the Alatri test in part as well. So we have seen this be the qualifying test before. In the previous editions, however, it has been run in the opposite direction for the shakedown and qualifying. So it used to be a kind of hill climby bit. However, it is changed now, and instead it's downhill at the start of it, as the Alatri test was. And then it climbs back up the hill for the second half of it. So a steady decline for the first 4 kilometers or so, and then a steep climb back up before it evens out for the final couple of Ks. Thursday's action is rounded up by Colosseo Aci Roma test. The 1.3 kilometer stage first appeared in the 2022 edition as a 1.7 kilometer test, but this one is going to be unchanged for the past couple of years. It's in front of the Colosseum in Rome. Turn left, then you turn right, then you go through some chicanes, some more chicanes, do a loop, and then go back through these chicanes again in the different direction. It is one of those ones that lives up to the saying. You can't win a rally on a super special, but you can certainly lose it. Saturday stages open up in both loops with Collapado Pozzo d'Antullo, a 6.47 kilometer test that is new for this year. It's around the village of Vico nel Lazio, and is based around the SP148 road and then the SP246 road. Looks like a nice little blast, climbing up from 500 meters above sea level to a peak that is nearly 750 meters above sea level at the end of the test. There's going to be some spectacular views, some nice winding hairpins, some fast corners. It's just going to look great. Stages 3 and 6 will be Torre di Cicerone. It's a 34.57 kilometer test, a gargantuan test that previously, in some different formats, has been the Santa Padre stage, which itself was still quite a massive 28 kilometers or 29 kilometers a couple of years ago. It uses the first half of the stage from the Santa Padre test, and then around 18 kilometers in, it goes into a different direction. This new direction goes along the Strada Provinciale Casalvieri Santo Padre, all the way up to the area of Togna, and then it turns left and then carries on for another 10 kilometers towards Arpino. This is going to be a very tricky test for us to drivers. The Santa Padre test was tricky enough, but yeah, it is going to be a challenge for all of the competitors, especially considering that half of the stage is going to be new to all competitors. So the home advantage is not necessarily there all the same. Stages 4 and 7, however, is the Santa Padre test, so it's around the same sort of roads that we will see, but it is just the second half of that test. So they will drive around the bits that they've just driven on to get to the stage 4. Stage 4 ends at Arpino, and then the closest way to get back is to just redrive some of the section they've just driven as liaison to get to stages 3 and 6, to get to stages 4 and 7 for Santa Padre. This part of it is quite familiar to competitors, though it's a bit longer at the start. It will be a bit that they will have done as road section, that 1 kilometer at the start of it. The Guasino Altipiani test will open up Sunday's loops, 11.58 kilometers. It is unchanged from 2024, and in fact this is going to be quite a familiar test for any regulars. I think it was shortened in 2022 from the Fuji Guasino test, but this stage first appeared in Rally di Roma Capitale back in 2017. It's really nice, quite fast, quite windy, climbs and declines around some mountains. The Canterano Subiaco test will also be in these loops. Now, it was known as Rocca di Cave Subiaco in previous years, or Cave Subiaco. So some of the stage will be new. In fact, it will be the first 23 kilometers of this 30 kilometer test that will be new to competitors. So that last 7 Ks will be familiar, but the first 23 Ks, it's up and then down and up and then down. If you, somebody who was watching my Acropolis preview, think of some of the stages like the power stage from the Acropolis. It will climb and then descend and then climb back up and then descend. It makes a lot of use out of the natural topography and the roads that decide to sort of flow around that topography. Lots of hairpins, lots of handbrake action. If you lose your handbrake here, it's going to be a problem. Likewise, if you lose your power steering, it'll be a problem. The final test is the Yene Monastero test. 7 kilometers in length. It's brought down from last year, and the direction is inverted as well, which will probably prove a challenge to people who are very familiar with the stage, but not too much of a challenge because the corners are still the same. It's just different profiles, different angles, probably different gears for some of them as well. Anyways, let's look back at last year's and actually the previous couple of years of events. The last 2 editions were run by Andrea Cronone behind the wheel of the Citroen C3 with FPF Sport, so you could think that he's a favourite going into it. Last year he was 23 seconds clear of Simone Campidelli at the end of it, with Efren Lorena, who had just parted from MRF. This is his first rally after parting with MRF. Him and Sarah Fernandez were 28 seconds off the pace at the end of the event. In 2023, behind Andrea Colonna and Giandomenico Basso, was Hayden Paddon in 3rd place, but he was nearly a minute of Cronola's winning time. In fact, the last 2 years, the finishing time for Cronola is less than a minute apart even. And that is even though the stages were slightly different, for instance. But it is going to be one that is good for the Italians. Damiano De Tommaso won in 2022 from Simone Campidelli. In 2021, it was Giandomenico Basso from Andrea Cronola. The last non-Italian to win was in 2020. That was Alexei Lukanyuk, ahead of Giandomenico Basso. And even then, you go back to 2019, it was an all-Italian lockout. Basso from Capitale from Crinola. Which I guess then means the question is, who is one to look out for? Well, Efren Lorena out of the ERC regulars. At the same time, the likes of Tempestini and John Armstrong have been good on the tarmac. Mass Osberg showed some pace last year before that horrific crash, which ended the career of Patrick Barth, his co-driver. Torstein Eriksson will be back behind the pace notes for Osberg this weekend, according to the entry list. You could put some good money on Andrea Mabolini, though he's very much an all-rounder. He did get his first ERC win last year for Rally Silesia, so that could be somebody to look out for. But I think the favourite's got to be Crinola. Basso has been competitive as well. Maybe that switch back to the Fabia is going to help. But don't rule out an upset. I'd say out of the Italian cohort, there are 4 or 5 drivers that you could really put up towards the front of the field. Including Mabolini, you've got Basso, you've got Crinola, you've got the likes of Roberto Dapri, you've got Camperdelli. And I said about Boštjan Abfeldic, who was really competitive last year in terms of pace, but just didn't get the result that he possibly deserved. Anyways, folks, those are my thoughts and feelings. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. As always, thanks so much for watching and joining. And until next time, it's bye-bye for now.